Most people think financial stress comes from not having enough money. But the truth is, even people with six-figure incomes can feel just as anxious. Why? Because the problem isn't only the amount you make, it's whether you have a plan aligned with God's wisdom. That's why 78% of people say having a financial plan would reduce their stress. Yet few ever stop to ask, what does a biblical plan for money look like across a lifetime? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Money without order becomes a master that enslaves instead of a tool that serves. The world tells you to spend now and worry later, but Scripture points to a different path. One where each season of life carries a unique calling. The financial priorities of your 20s aren't the same as your 40s or 60s, and ignoring that design can cost you decades of progress. This video is going to walk you decade by decade, showing you how God provides not only principles, but also practical steps. From overcoming debt in your 20s to leaving a kingdom legacy beyond retirement, you'll see how money can transform from a source of stress into a servant of peace. And the beauty is, you don't have to guess. Scripture already gives the roadmap. If you like our content, consider supporting our ministry through the link in the description. So whether you're just starting out, navigating the messy middle, or preparing for the final chapters, this message will give you clarity. God never intended for you to stumble through money blindly. He has a plan for your business, your household, and your finances in every season of life, and it's time to discover it. The power of a plan. In your 20s, laying the biblical foundation for money. At the beginning of adult life, a young person's greatest asset is not the money they hold, but the time God has given them. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us that there is a time for everything. This means youth is the season to plant, the time to establish solid financial habits, even if the fruit won't appear until years later. Many in their 20s fall into the trap of thinking, there's still time to get organized. But time, if not stewarded wisely, becomes the enemy of growth. Financial discipline at this stage is like the foundation of a house, invisible, but indispensable. Jesus spoke about the wise man who built his house on the rock, Matthew 7:24. The young adult who learns to live on less than they make and rejects impulsive consumption is, in practice, building on the rock. It may not be glamorous to refuse consumer debt, but that decision separates them from the majority and puts them on the path to prosperity. This is also the age when the temptation to live for appearances is strongest. Expensive clothes, unnecessary trips, finance cars. The Apostle Paul warned, "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil," 1 Timothy 6:10. A wise young adult understands that making money does not mean spending it to impress, but sowing it for the future. By learning to distinguish between wants and needs, they begin to rule money instead of being ruled by it. Here's a practical example. Someone who starts investing just $100 a month in an index fund at age 20 could, thanks to compound interest, accumulate hundreds of thousands by retirement. But if they wait until 40, they'll need to invest 5 times more to reach the same result. This is the multiplier of time, a financial law that echoes Proverbs 21:20. The wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down. Another crucial point is to start small, but start. Many wait until they have extra to invest, but that day never comes. Opening an investment account, contributing to a Roth IRA, or even setting aside 10% of every paycheck is already a step of faith. Just like the widow who gave her 2 small coins, Mark 12:42, God honors disciplined hearts, not the size of the contribution. The young adult who brings order to their cash flow proves they can be faithful in little. Finally, the 20s are the training ground for budgeting. Not as a prison, but as freedom. Creating a simple spreadsheet or using financial apps is a spiritual exercise in stewardship. Each budget line is a reminder that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, Psalm 24:1. The young person who masters budgeting is not only preparing to manage money but also future businesses, family, and even ministry. The messy 30s, balancing business, family, and God's financial order. The 30s are often called the messy middle. Life speeds up, professional responsibilities grow, marriage and children bring new demands, and expenses seem to multiply. Ecclesiastes 4:9 reminds us that 2 are better than 1, showing that family life brings strength, but it also requires order. At this stage, money management no longer affects just the individual, it impacts the entire household. It is also the season when many experience career or business growth, while simultaneously feeling the pressure of not having enough time. The temptation is to focus solely on making money while neglecting both spiritual life and financial order at home. Yet Matthew 6:33 provides the proper sequence. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Misplaced priorities open the door to financial chaos. A vital principle of the 30s is simplification. Automating investments, consolidating debts, and creating routines reduces the mental burden of constant decision-making. Proverbs 13:11 says, "Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow." In practice, this means setting up automatic contributions to index funds or retirement accounts so that consistency is maintained, even when life feels like a whirlwind. The 30s also demand stronger protection. In your 20s, a basic health plan or living on the edge may have seemed sufficient, but now, with dependents, ignoring protection is negligence. 1 Timothy 5:8 warns, "Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." Life insurance, robust emergency reserves, and health coverage become acts of faithfulness, not just financial prudence. Another danger in this decade is trying to live your children's dreams before securing your own foundation. Parents often sacrifice retirement savings to fund college plans too early, but it's like giving someone else oxygen before putting on your own mask. Practically speaking, before opening a 529 plan for the kids, make sure you're saving at least 25% of your income. Otherwise, you exchange your future peace for present anxiety. Consistency in saving and investing also defines this stage. Reaching the first $100,000 in savings is the hardest but most important milestone. It's a psychological victory, proof that discipline creates results. It's like David facing Goliath, 1 Samuel 17. The initial victory builds the confidence needed for bigger battles ahead. In the same way, faithfulness in the 30s paves the way for multiplication in the 40s. The strategic 40s, multiplying money with wisdom and tax stewardship. In your 40s, life reaches a financial crossroads. Many are entering peak earning years while responsibilities grow more complex, raising children, higher taxes, and weightier career choices. This is the time to lean on wisdom. As James 1:5 says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault." Wisdom here means not only how to make money, but how to multiply and protect what has already been built. The time multiplier starts to shrink in this decade. Each dollar has fewer years to grow. Strategy must shift from simply starting to optimizing. Proverbs 21:5 teaches, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty." That diligence now includes intentional tax planning. It's no longer enough to earn, you must also preserve, leveraging retirement accounts, Roth conversions, and taxable brokerage accounts with foresight. The 40s are also the season for thoughtful diversification. Those who built a strong foundation earlier can now consider real estate, small businesses, or other ventures. But like Nehemiah rebuilding the walls, Nehemiah 2:17-18, the base must be solid before expanding. Taking unnecessary risks can be tempting, but the discipline to protect before multiplying ensures stability. This is where patience and prudence outweigh flashy strategies. Efficiency becomes essential here. A practical step is reviewing contribution levels across 401(k)s, Roth IRAs, and brokerage accounts. Many families discover that simply adjusting the order of contributions saves thousands in lifetime taxes. This is tax stewardship, being a faithful manager of what is Caesar's, Matthew 22:21, without paying more than necessary. The wise steward learns to use the system legally for the family's benefit. Another challenge is lifestyle inflation. Higher earnings often lead to higher spending, which cancels progress. Haggai 1:6 illustrates this trap. You earn wages only to put them in a purse with holes in it. The antidote is simplicity, automating savings, committing to save at least 25% of income, and resisting the pull of status-driven consumption. Wealth built on discipline lasts. Wealth built on image disappears. Finally, the 40s are a decade for reassessing the bigger picture. It's time to ask, am I only accumulating or am I preparing for a legacy? This is where financial vision shifts, like Joseph in Egypt, Genesis 41, who multiplied resources and years of abundance to prepare for famine. The believer in their 40s must align financial growth with eternal purpose. This decade is less about addition and more about multiplication, with wisdom guiding every decision. The transition 50s, from accumulating wealth to securing legacy. Reaching your 50s is like seeing the horizon of retirement. Up to this point, the focus has been on accumulation. But now the perspective begins to shift. How to protect and direct what has been built. Proverbs 13:22 says, A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. This decade marks a transition. Less about making money at any cost, more about ensuring money serves the family and God's kingdom. Complexity also increases in this stage. Many discover that while their portfolio has grown, they lack clarity on how to structure it for the years ahead. The challenge is no longer just about growing assets, but preparing for safe withdrawals. Jesus illustrated this in Luke 14:28. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost? In your 50s, vague estimates won't do. It's time for precise planning. Protection becomes central here. It's not enough to invest well. You must guard against unexpected risks. Stronger life insurance, updated health coverage, and larger emergency reserves are vital. A practical approach. Many advisors recommend 12 and 18 months of expenses in cash, so you don't need to sell investments during a downturn. It's the modern application of Genesis 41, where Joseph stored provisions to face years of famine. Estate planning also becomes unavoidable. Many avoid talking about death, but neglecting it leaves family members vulnerable. Statistics show that a large percentage of people in this stage have no will. The Bible is clear in 2 Kings 20:1, when Isaiah told Hezekiah, "Put your house in order." Preparing documents, communicating with heirs, and organizing succession is not just financial wisdom, it's spiritual obedience. This is also the time to review lifestyle. With peak earnings, the temptation is to spend more freely and enjoy prosperity. But true freedom comes from contentment and priority alignment. Philippians 4:11-12 teaches us to be content in all circumstances. This means enjoying blessings without being enslaved by them. Using money as a servant, not as a master. Lastly, the 50s serve as a rehearsal for the next stage, shifting from wealth accumulator to wealth distributor. The heart should begin preparing to use money intentionally, supporting ministries, helping children and grandchildren, contributing to eternal causes. This decade is where the vision of legacy takes shape, not just as a future plan, but as a present reality. And this naturally sets the stage for the 60s, when blessings built over a lifetime begin to be shared more fully. The transition 60s, shifting from making money to passing the blessing. In your 60s, many begin to realize that the season of accumulation is coming to an end. The focus shifts from how to make money grow to how to use money wisely. It is a change of identity, from worker and provider to mentor and giver. Acts 20:35 reminds us, it is more blessed to give than to receive. This decade is about transforming wealth into blessing, leaving eternal marks on family and community. This stage requires both emotional and spiritual adjustment. For decades, security came from work and active income. Now, confidence must rest more on God than on a paycheck. Psalm 37:25 declares, "I was young and now I am old, yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging bread." Faith becomes as strategic as financial planning. Without it, fear of spending can overshadow the joy of blessing others. Practically, the 60s call for efficiency and withdrawals. Strategies like the 4% rule, coordination of taxable, Roth, and Social Security income streams must be considered. The goal is simple: create a sustainable flow of income without depleting resources. Just as Joseph organized Egypt's storehouses so that every year had provision, a wise believer organizes accounts so that every decade can be lived with stability. Mentorship also becomes a powerful calling. The 60s bring something youth cannot replicate: experience. This is the season to teach children, grandchildren, and even younger entrepreneurs about financial discipline and faithfulness to God. Proverbs 17:6 says, "Children's children are a crown to the aged." Legacy is not only about assets, but also about wisdom, values, and spiritual inheritance. Passing down knowledge is as valuable as passing down wealth. One risk in this decade is attachment. Many fear spending what they've built and end up living in anxiety. Remembering that money is a tool, not the goal, helps break this cycle. A practical example is setting aside a portion of income for missions, charities, or even small acts of generosity. This habit reframes wealth as a living blessing, keeping money in motion for God's purposes. Finally, the 60s are about preparing intentionally for the years ahead, full retirement and generational impact. It is not only about leaving something, but showing how to live. Organizing inheritance, finalizing legal documents, and experiencing the joy of seeing loved ones benefit in your lifetime brings freedom. This mindset opens the door to the next stage, living beyond retirement when money becomes a tool to serve God's kingdom until the very end. Beyond retirement, how to make money Serve God's kingdom until the end. After crossing the line of retirement, many assume the race is finished. But biblically, stewardship never retires. Psalm 92:14 declares, "They will still bear fruit in old age, they will stay fresh and green." This means that the believer's role in this stage is not merely to rest, but to use what has been accumulated to keep bearing fruit. Money becomes a servant of the mission, not just a resource for survival. This transition is delicate, from someone who spent decades accumulating to someone who must now manage withdrawals wisely. The risk is twofold, either overspending too quickly or living in fear of spending it all. Both extremes rob peace. Proverbs 38:9 captures the balance. "Give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread." Retirement should be lived with prudence and generosity, not fear or excess. On the technical side, this stage calls for portfolio reviews, adjusted allocations, and protecting capital from major risks. Advisors often recommend diversification that blends fixed income, dividend-paying assets, and liquidity. The goal is to ensure provision even during market downturns. It reflects the widow's jar of oil in 1 Kings 17:16, which never ran dry. A well-structured portfolio ensures provision remains steady even in uncertain times. Generosity becomes even more powerful here. There is no greater joy than giving while still alive to witness the impact. Supporting missions, funding scholarships, contributing to churches or charities turns money into eternal seeds. Jesus taught in Matthew 6:20, "But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven." Retirees who embrace this mindset don't just leave an inheritance, they create an eternal legacy. This stage is also about testimony. Living retirement with peace, not desperation, shows children and grandchildren that faith and financial stewardship produce tangible fruit. Instead of passing down only numbers and accounts, you pass down a way of life. Like Paul in 2 Timothy 4:7, you can say, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." Retirement becomes a witness of faith in action. Ultimately, this phase points to the greatest investment: eternity. Every resource, every act of discipline, and every seed sown through the decades now aligns with what truly matters. Money, once a tool for growth and security, becomes a vessel for spiritual impact. Retirement is not the end of the journey, it is the preparation for the final chapter, using every dollar and every talent as a seed for a legacy that never ends. The final stage of the financial journey is not about numbers, it's about meaning. Many reach the end of life with full accounts, but empty purpose. Jesus posed the critical question in Mark 8:36. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? At this stage, the greatest calling is to align money with mission so that your legacy outlives your wealth. Faith gives finances eternal direction. A believer recognizes that while wealth can provide comfort, it was never meant to be the ultimate reward. Money is simply a tool God entrusts to us for a season. Psalm 24:1 reminds us, "The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it." When this truth governs the heart, generosity becomes natural, and legacy is built not only in material inheritance, but also in spiritual impact. Practically, this means shifting focus from accumulation to intentional distribution. Whether through endowments, charitable trusts, or personal giving, resources can be channeled toward kingdom purposes. Supporting ministries, funding education, or investing in causes that lift communities ensures your money continues to serve long after you are gone. It is the modern version of laying treasures in heaven, Matthew 6:20. But leaving a legacy is not just about writing checks. It's about modeling a life of faith and financial wisdom. Children and grandchildren remember not only what was left to them, but the values lived before them. Proverbs 22:6 declares, "Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it." Legacy is both taught and caught, lived and transferred. The danger at this stage is believing your role is complete once documents are signed and wealth is divided. But legacy is alive. It's in the testimonies you share, the prayers you sow, the guidance you offer. Like Paul mentoring Timothy, your words and example can ripple across generations, shaping not only finances but faith itself. Ultimately, the eternal legacy is not about money but about obedience. Wealth fades, but the kingdom impact remains forever. A faithful steward ensures that every resource, whether large or small, is aligned with God's greater story. This final chapter is not about closure, but continuation. Your influence carried beyond your lifetime into eternity. Now that you've seen how God's wisdom guides money through every season of life, the question is simple. What will you do with it? Will you continue drifting without direction? Or will you take action today to align your finances with God's plan? Remember, the difference between those who flourish and those who struggle is not knowledge alone. It's obedience and application. Ask yourself, am I being faithful with what I already have? Am I preparing not just for comfort, but for purpose? Am I building something that will outlive me? These are not just financial questions, they are spiritual ones. Because every dollar you manage is really a reflection of who or what you serve. I challenge you to stop waiting for someday. Start now. Whether you're in your 20s with just a few dollars to save, in your 40s optimizing for growth, or in your 60s preparing a legacy, the time to act is today. Don't let fear, excuses, or distractions rob you of the future God has already prepared for you. Write in the comments, God's order is my financial foundation, and watch how this powerful declaration begins to shift the course of your business and your finances from this day forward. If this message spoke to you, consider supporting our ministry through the link in the description. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the wisdom and encouragement God has for your financial journey.